Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Kailash with Mohanji Chronicles. This is a series dedicated to bring you closer to Kailash through personal stories of those who have experienced this sacred journey. But today's episode is going to be a bit different. We'll be looking at Kailash from scientific perspective because today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Semir Osmanagić. Dr. Osmanagich is a researcher, author, and founder of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation. He is known worldwide for his fascinating work on the Bosnian pyramids in Visoko, where he's led archaeological and interdisciplinary research for almost 2 decades. But his curiosity goes far beyond Bosnia. He's traveled the world exploring ancient sites and the mysteries of our planet. And one of those places he has visited is the legendary Mount Kailash in Tibet. So in this episode, we'll hear about Dr. Osmanagić's personal experience visiting Kailash, as well as his unique scientific perspective on the mountain. And we'll explore how Kailash connects to his research on pyramids and ancient sites worldwide. And I hope we'll get a chance to hear his thoughts on the hidden history of human civilization. Dr. Osmanagić, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining.
Hello, Ivana. Thank you for such a nice introduction. And I'm very happy to be here with you.
Thank you. I am really looking forward to this conversation. So let's just dive right in. Your research has taken you to many fascinating sites around the world. So how did you first hear about Mount Kailash, and what put Kailash on your radar?
I heard about Kailash decades ago. You know, when people start talking about the legendary cities, usually under the ground, Kailash is always on the top of the list. And below the Kailash, there are the legends that there is a famous legendary city of Shambhala. And then it is closely tied to the Shangri-La and even to Agartha. Now, most of them are just myths, but myths are based on legends, and legends are based on true stories. So when back in 2016, I received a call from my friends from Bulgaria that they were organizing, together with some Russian researchers, conference in Kailash about the pyramids, including the Kailash. And they invited me. I said, yes, I'll be glad to come. A couple of months later, they said, well, listen, we're going to be doing Kailash Kora. You're going to be joining us. I said, yes, even though I had no clue what Kailash Kora really meant. And then I was so busy over the next few months. And then finally, a week before I was supposed to travel to East, first to the Philippines, I had a conference there, and then to Kailash. I started researching the climate and how to prepare myself. And then, of course, Philippines, I had 37 degrees above zero, very, very hot and humid weather. And then from there, I was supposed to fly to China and eventually ended up in Western Tibet, Kailash, with minus 25 degrees. And then I realized that, hey, I will need to get the proper clothing with me. And not only that, when I started reading about the Kailash Kora, I found out that it is very, very physically challenging trip around the holy mountain of Kailash. And I realized that many people really prepare themselves for 6 or even 9 months to do the Kailash Kora. And I went to travel to the east without a 1 day of preparation. So I traveled to the east. After the Philippines and Cambodia before that, I went to China. In order to get from Chinese capital city of Beijing all the way to the Western Tibet, you have to have 5 visas and permissions. Fortunately, we had a team who was working for us and who prepared everything a few months ahead. So I first ended up in eastern Tibet. I went to the capital city. You know, you would expect that the stories from the 1930s and the stories about Dalai Lama, but such a beautiful monastery there, are still alive. Instead, you are arriving to the modern airport, driving highway to the capital city, the skyscrapers everywhere. Only in the very center of the city, we discovered that the famous monastery is still there. Monastery where the last Dalai Lama used to rule from. Today, instead of 10,000 priests who are teaching the Tibetan wisdom, today it's very little left. Most of the space and most of the offices and halls are closed for the visitors nowadays. And as I was traveling to the west of Tibet, I realized that finally, with 1967, most of their monasteries were robbed, abandoned. The number of priests were usually reduced from 1,000 to 20, from 500 to 4, from 200 to 2. And even those remaining priests or lamas were not doing their ceremonies like before. During my trip to the Western Tibet, we were driving very narrow road and a huge valley in front of you, and to the left you can see the Himalaya. Now, this is almost unthinkable length of the mountains from the left side of the horizon all the way to the right side, all the way to the Pakistan. And when I was looking at the tops of those mountains, majority of them were pyramidal, 3-sided pyramids or 4-sided pyramids. At one point when we made a break, I was looking in front of me, there was something like a dome, perfectly regular. And during my trip in Western Tibet, I was doing a lot of meditation. My meditations are focus meditation. There's a system that I've been developed. And usually on my hand, I talk to our Mother Earth, and with the other one, I seek the information from ahead. So I asked about this particular regular dome on the top of the mountain. And the first picture I saw was the picture, very strange being with elongated eyes, with the retina being vertical, not horizontal, like human retina. So I immediately knew that it was a being that does not belong to our race, Homo sapiens sapiens. When I wanted to get more information, it looked like it was blocked by those same beings. And I realized, yes, this place is a place of many intriguing and mysterious stories. Eventually, we arrived close to Kailash. Just by looking this huge mountain, it is so impressive. Geologically speaking, it has a granite base, limestone and dolerite, very old, very strong, energetically very powerful materials. Geometrically, it is 4-sided mountain. Now those sides are not perfectly regular. They are not triangular faces. They are still 4 sides with distinctive corners. I took compass and it showed me proper orientation to the cardinal points: east, west, north, and south. Now, Kailash is not the tallest mountain in Himalayan range, but it is probably the only one which has not been conquered. Being the holy mountain for 4 religions, even though in the past some mountaineers got permission to climb due to very strong international pressure, they would not dare to climb Kailash Mountain. I mentioned that it is holy mountain. Matter of fact, many people are saying it is holiest of all the places on the planet. Some people call it the center of the world. And some people are saying that Kailash represents stairways to heaven. Which 4 religions? First one, the oldest one, is Bon religion. Buddhism took over this religion, and it is holy mountain for them also. It is said one of the Buddhas resides under the Kailash mountain. Then we have Jainism. It is also said that the first Jain who succeeded to interrupt this cycle of going from one body to another, the cycle of reincarnation, decided to live under Kailash. And finally, it is the holy mountain to Hinduism, which is one of the most populated, most numbered religions in the world. As a matter of fact, for Hindu and Buddhists, it is one of the most important goals in their life to do the Kailash Kora. Kailash Kora means that you have to walk around the mountain 360 degrees. And usually this walk lasts for 3 days. So it was the beginning of May when I arrived to Kailash. And this is when the regular season for the Kailash Kora opens. However, majority of the people come only the end of July or in September, because in May you still have snow and ice. Everywhere it is very cold. Daily temperatures are never higher than minus 12 degrees Celsius, and during the nights drops to minus 25 or even minus 28. On your way, there are no facilities. However, 2 points, there are tents. When I was walking there, they were just establishing those tents. So I was among the first one that season, back in 2017. And in my team, I had 2 Bulgarian friends, Boris and Senko. One was a physician, the other one was pilot. And they told me when we met over there, Western Tibet, which is part of today's China, they said that they were preparing for this trip for 7 full months. They are climbing the mountains, they're going to gym, they're doing all kinds of exercising and working out. And I came without a day. And we have a very young guy, his name was Jung. Jung was Tibetan, living in northern India. If you go a little back to the past, the end of the 1940s, then mid of 1950s, and finally 1966, 1967 are the era that the Chinese government, Chinese army went inside Tibet, killed many, many people, and destroyed, unfortunately, a lot of books, knowledge, wisdom from the ancient times. Some of the books were burned, some of them ended up in Beijing, some of them were saved, and they took them with them to northern India, and some of them are in Nepal. So really, if you want to reach Kailash, you go either from northern India, Nepal, in most cases, you really climb it from western China, because Kailash is, all Kailash still belongs to the Chinese today. So Kailash is so important because from Kailash, 4 major rivers that flow into 4 different directions originate. One is Indus River, which is holy river for Hindus and for Indians. Another one is Satluj River. Another one is Brahmaputra. Another one is the Karnali. Now imagine from one mountain, east, west, north, and south. And all those rivers are bringing so much water needed for the area below. But not only the rivers. Around Kailash, there are several holy lakes of beautiful blue color. When you get there, it's unbelievable. If you get lucky and you have sunny day, the beautiful blue sky, even though it is very, very cold, just by looking at those lakes, it's very impressive sight. Some of them are holy lakes. You cannot see the ports, you cannot see the boats, because it is said you cannot go there and fish only when the fish die and the water waves bring the fish to the shore. That's the only time when you can eat them. And it is recommended, especially to the pregnant women, to eat the fish from the holy lake. Also, going to some of the monasteries around those holy lakes is a special experience. At one of the monasteries, even though it was reduced number of lamas there, I asked them what was the oldest book that they had. They told me it was a book which was 1,500 years old. But also he told me that some of the books in other monasteries were about 5,000 years old. In some bigger monasteries, the books of major importance were so big that 3 priests were needed to carry it. And they would take it out from the shelves, maybe every 5 years. And then they would read texts, holy texts about the wisdom about the history, political system, agriculture, philosophy, astronomy, wars, and conflicts. So while talking to the Lama, showing the respect, what he did, he took one of his most precious books, get it close to me, and touch my head with the book, showing the respect for me being so humble, recognizing the importance of the monastery. Now, I had some really interesting experiences while walking the Kailash Kora. From the moment one, when you start the Kora, there is a little Hindu temple. This is where you walk 3 times around it. You bring your flags for the good luck and respect. And while there, when I close my eyes, what came into my mind was the message saying, I'm nothing more than the speck of dust. I'm of no importance. And the message I'm carrying from the oldest built pyramid in the world, mother of all of them, the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, to the oldest shaped pyramid mountain, father of them all, Kailash Pyramid, is that Tibetans and Chinese live in peace, that Chinese let Tibetans run their affairs old ways, and that Tibetans combine their spirituality with the technological progress brought by mainland China, so they can bring prosperity to their nation. I asked from the Chinese who travel the world to figure out the real truth of the events happened 60 and 50 years back, and try to recognize Tibet that belongs to the Tibetans. A couple more times, I got very similar messages that were coming into my head. Kailash Kora, which takes usually 3 days, in my case took only 2 days. And that was a very challenging experience. Before I came to China, talking to a friend of mine from Bulgaria, I found out that they are coming 1 week before, so they can acclimatize to the conditions of very high altitude. Namely, you are constantly at 4,500 to 5,000 meters. The oxygen is lacking. I could see a lot of people with those oxygen bottles, and they use the oxygen so they can have it enough for the body. The problem with being on high altitude is that without enough oxygen, you cannot feed your brain and you cannot feed your body, because oxygen is carried through the blood. So more mass you have, the more thoughts you have, you need more oxygen. People who live there actually have their nostrils much bigger and wider than us, and their hearts are physically bigger than ours. So they are accustomed to the conditions over there. It is especially important when you go to bed, sleep. So I came 1 week early also, doing a lot of visits to monasteries, hollow lakes. But then I realized that instead of resting, getting an idea how to prepare the body, the high altitude, that I simply exhausted my body because I could not sleep. Namely, you go to those hostels, as they call them, with no electricity, because the day before, usually there was snow. They said, okay, we're going to get electricity tomorrow at 7 p.m. There is a running water, but you're going to take shower because, even if you have a mild temperature of the water, how can you take shower at -12? Because in those hostels, same temperature like outside. In the evenings, like I said, -25. So you sleep in your booth, sleep, in your trousers, at least 2 pairs, 5, 6 blouses and jackets, and 1 or 2 caps on your head. And this is how you sleep. Go to bed the dark because there is no electricity, 8, 9 p.m. And you think that you are sleeping. During those short periods, the dreams you have a little scary. The one I had was that I was drowning in the water and I needed oxygen. I wanted to breathe. And the next moment, I was awoke. And then I remembered, hey, I'm at the Tibet. I need to do Kailash Kora. I need to prepare myself. You try to sleep. After 5 minutes, the same thing. You try to have a very deep breath. You can do it 2 or 3 times. The moment you fell asleep, you started breathing very short breaths. So 2, 3 a.m., you are awake. So what I would do, I would just take my computer, would be writing. So instead of resting and being prepared for Kailash Kora, I was so exhausted. Of course, the next thing is about the food. Very hard to find available something that looks like a European food. Now, especially if you don't eat meat, then your troubles are even bigger. So when the day came, I needed to do Kailash Kora after 1 week, which was really exhausting. I said to myself, hey, this is going to be a big, big challenge to me. So first day, we had nice weather. It was blue sky. Second day, we had snow. First day, it was nice. So we did our, I think, about 20 kilometers or so. So we started at 40,500 and then we are climbing up all the time. Eventually, you come more than 5,600 meters. Let me just remind you, the highest European mountain is 2 times less. So what we climbed was 2 times taller. So we came to the tent, and that evening we met a group from Russia. And we got to know them, and we learned that they are going to leave the camp tomorrow very early in the morning, 4:30 a.m., about 30 minutes before us. So 5 o'clock, we are up. We started doing Kora, we started climbing. It was pitch dark. And we go through the snow slowly. Without the oxygen, everything is tougher on you. So we walk slowly, very short step. In approximately 1 hour, that slow and hard work, when you think about why am I doing this, it's going to be harder and harder. Then what happened? One Russian woman was coming back with one of the guides. And now 3 of us with our own guide jump. We are looking at that woman. She was coming back, and we knew she was going to end up in a pickup truck, and the truck will take her to the base camp. So we are thinking, oh, lucky her. And we continued to climb. It was more and more steep. Eventually, in another hour, we could see in front of us the Russian group was taking rest. By the time they were done with the rest, they started climbing up. We almost got all the way to them. Now, as we were going higher, the snow was getting deeper and deeper, approximately 1 meter deep. So, first person who was doing the steps basically were following their steps. Otherwise, it wouldn't make much sense that we make our own road in such a deep snow. So our pace became even slower. So one has to realize there is not enough oxygen. that you have to fight your body, your thoughts, your emotions. And this is all happening on the first physical level. We go step by step, step, step. It is very, very slow. It is not like steps which are 50 or 80 centimeters. It's one foot next to other. Very, very slow. So I was walking continuously, slowly, but continuously. And eventually I was getting closer to one Russian, big guy. And I could see that he was working out for this experience of his life, going to gym and elsewhere, but it was a lot of muscles. And those muscles needed an oxygen, and he was not getting enough. So he would make 3, 4 steps, and then he would stop. He would break. And another few steps, and then he stops. And then walking behind him. The only thing I can think of is, hey, I want the continuity in my pace. So eventually, after 3, 4 times, I had to stop because of him. I touched his shoulder. Didn't have enough energy to talk. I just mimicked to him, hey, I go around you, you stay there. So he let me pass him. And then I was starting walking in a normal pace. And then you go, and then, the sun gets up. We were very lucky because from the snow, we got some, sunny periods. And then the day was already there. To your right was Kailash. When you do Kailash Kora, according to the Buddhists and Hindu, you do it clockwise, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Why clockwise? When you walk clockwise, especially megalithic sites around the world, this is when you are getting the energy from Mother Earth. And the opposite, when you walk counterclockwise, you give your energy if you have some extra, or if you have some bad thoughts, or if you have some negative energy, you give it to the Mother Earth. So for some reason, Hindu and Buddhists decided to do clockwise. While walking, I started meeting some people who are doing some special ritual. They were devotee, persons devoted totally to the holiness of this mountain. Instead of walking, what they would do, they would make one step, go down to their knees, touch the ground with their head. In this particular case, touch the snow because it was still May. In August, you touch the ground. In May, you touch the snow. Symbolically, you're touching the earth, showing your respect, how humble you are, how you are devoted to your religion and to Kailash. I found out that it takes 3 months for them to do the Kailash Kora. 3 months. So just to show the respect, I started following one of them, doing the same thing like he did. One step, go down to your knees, touch the ground, touch the soil with your hand. Stood up, again. One step, touch the snow, going up. Of course, if it takes 3 months, it's impossible to have enough food for 3 months. 2 or 3 days, yes. 3 months, no. So what happens? Under certain rocks and in the small caves, the people who would regularly walk, like I was doing, 2 or 3 days, what they would do, they would leave some food for those strangers who would come after that. And you realize how those people are connected, how they respect each other. So I continued my walk, going steeper and steeper. And you have no idea how long it's going to take. Looking to my right, Kailash, the Valley of Mirrors. It is said that at this particular side of Kailash, the time disappears. People start hallucinating. And those who are older, especially of Hindu tradition, they decide to join their god Shiva. They die. And this is the highest level of respect they can show to their ancestors and their religion. And true enough, every year we learned about some people who died during the Kailash Kora. And with the sun up, I said it would be wonderful to take a photo of Kailash. Now, one has to realize that while doing Kora at such little level of oxygen, you cannot have 2, 3, or 5 flows of different thoughts, only one. Then I was thinking, in order to get my camera, which is deep in one of the pockets of my first trousers, what I would need to do, I would need to take off my left gloves and my right gloves. And I would need to unzip my big jacket. And I need to unzip my second jacket. And I need to remove jumper. And I would need to, open my first trousers. And then I would need to look for the camera. It was so many activities which are really minor in our regular life. But in that particular case, every move was a challenge. I was thinking, hey, I need to do 10 things. It's just too much. I won't be doing that. And I continued walking, climbing. And then I was thinking, hey, eventually I'm going to get to the top. And then after that, you start climbing down. While thinking that another Russian and another guide were coming in our direction, another failure. And then when looking at them, so exhausted, I was thinking, yeah, these people, they're going to go to that pickup truck again, and they go back driving. It is so much easier than what we do now. But then I continued. At a certain point, because I was not so well physically prepared, and your feet, they simply don't want to listen. They're sending in thoughts. But they said, no, well, we are just too tired. Especially when you see people who are going back, climbing down, which is so much easier. Then, since my mind could not motivate other parts of the body, then my soul took over. My mind was saying to the whole body, hey, if you succeed, what you can do? You can write a book. It will be a great achievement. The body does not want to listen no more. And once the soul took over, you find the strength to go to the highest point. So for me, clearly, that was the moment when the physical body, with all of its entities, emotional body, intellectual body, even energetical body, cannot face this challenge no more. But then the soul is obviously a higher entity that decided to move on, giving me some new ideas. For example, what's going to happen when I reach the top? And then again, my human intelligence on the physical body was thinking, wow, when I reach the end, I'm going to yell so loud that the whole valley and the mountain will be giving echo around us for kilometers. So I was climbing, and eventually I did reach the highest point. From that point on, it was just climbing down. But since I got there first among three of us, my Bulgarian friends, Boris and Senko, came first, I said, okay, let me rest a little bit. And then surprisingly, on one of the highest points of Kailash, covered by snow, I could see a few rocks sticking up. I found one which has relatively flat surface, and I sat down. So I was resting. I'm almost at the top of the wall. And then all of a sudden, a little bird came. I was thinking, where did this bird come from? Then I remembered that in my pocket, I had reserved a piece of bread. So I got a piece of bread, a very, very small piece. I threw towards the bird. The bird got it. Oh, I was very happy. I got him another piece, another small piece. And then all of a sudden, another bird flew over, landed near me. Oh, I was so happy. Second bird. I was wondering what they're doing so high. There's no food around. And yet, I'm providing them with the food. I gave another piece, both of them. And then two more came. A flock of birds, 6,600 meters above the sea level. Small ones. So I was feeding the birds. And I was having really nice, pure time with them. I felt so happy. I was almost done with my bread. I didn't care that I would not have. When two of my Bulgarian friends came, oh, they were happy too, but in a different way. They started yelling, yeah, we made it, same, blah, blah. And the birds got afraid and they flew, from us. I was so disappointed. My birds were gone. So I'm looking at my two Bulgarian friends. I'm saying, why did you scare off my birds? It was my reaction. But anyway, soon after, we started climbing down. Going down, it was easier. I like climbing down, by the way. Some people don't. And eventually, we came very close to the second base. This is where people stop, they make a break, they sleep, and they continue tomorrow. But when talking to my guide, Zhang, I asked him, okay, how long will it take us to get from the second to the third camp? He said about 3 to 4 hours. I said, let's continue. And then we did continue. And I don't know where I found the strength, but I was walking far ahead, my friends. And eventually Zhang said, listen, they are behind us. a lot. They don't see us anymore. There is a truck here. Why don't we take a truck, then we drive, back to our hostel? I said, no, I'm not here to cheat anyone. I'm here because of myself. I want to do complete Kailash Kora, 360 degrees. He said, fine. So I was walking, and huge challenge that you're facing. You overcome all of your, people would say problems. I always used the word challenge. You overcome. And eventually we arrived. Before we arrived, I was thinking, how can I motivate myself? And then I remember the only place where you can take some sort of shower is the monastery with the thermal bath. Temperature is about 30 to 32 degrees, which is fine. It is not too hot. And even though such a high temperature water drains your energy, on the other hand, you refresh yourself, you clean yourself. It came about 7 p.m. It was dark already. We went to the monastery. We went to this thermal bath. And then we went back to hostel. And I was exhausted, but I was so happy because I had proven to myself that even the highest challenges can be overcome once you realize how your body and soul functions, that they are separate entities. Body, soul, the third one, of course, being the spirit. Body, protection for the soul, soul, protection for the divine light. Spirit. And Mountain Kailash became one of the highlights of my life, really, because it gets you thinking. Next day, we drove away, so I was able to look at Kailash from different perspectives. And I was looking at it, and I could notice that around Kailash, there are about 10 smaller pyramidal mountains. Some of them step pyramids, four-sided. Some of them true pyramids, also four-sided. On the right-hand side, there was a smaller pyramidal mountain called Little Kailash. And on the left side, a huge valley between Kailash and another mountain away. I did another meditation. My hands pointing towards Kailash, the other one, Earth, and starting receiving information. I asked if there was a legendary city of Shambhala below Kailash. The answer was, there are beings below Kailash, not human beings. We live in the third density, a density above. They've been there for a very, very long time. I got an idea that we talk about millions of years. I'm talking about Shambhala, Shangri-La, or Agartha. We hear stories, especially from their authors from 19th centuries, that certain beings have been there living for at least hundreds of years. But here, what I was getting was much, much longer period. I was asking questions. Do they know what's happening on the surface? The answer was yes. Do they care? In most cases, they don't. Even about the Chinese and Tibetans, and their conflict. However, they do approve Tibetan way of living in harmony and respect with the mother planet. Now, they do, those beings under the Kailash, influence certain events on the surface of the planets, Homo sapiens, and beings before us. So they actually influence spiritual aspects of our life. How? I mentioned the valley between Kailash and another mountain. And it seems that those pyramidal mountains creates very powerful, first, energy beam going up, and secondly, energy flow going around the planet in 4 directions, affecting living beings, especially our spiritual aspect. So, of course, some of us do receive downloads. How you can independently verify? Hardly. But as I said, this experience was of immense importance for my life. After I came back to Sarajevo and Visoko, and thinking about this experience, and if I was asking myself, would you do it again? Would you recommend this experience to anyone else? The answer was mostly, I don't think so. However, many people, Hindu, Buddhists, do not 1, not 2, but 10 Kailash Kora. The 9 Kailash Kora, doing 52 kilometers, mostly in 3 days, they decide to do inner circle, the 10th, which is very intensive spiritually. And some people keep doing Kailash Kora every year, the real devotee. So, for me, this was a very rewarding experience. For others, I would recommend go in the middle of the summer, July, and the best would be August, when the temperature is above 0. That would be my experience about Kailash.
Wow, you shared so much. You answered a lot of my questions already without me even having to ask. And it's really amazing how you managed to do that journey in such low temperatures in May in only 2 days. I'm fascinated because I went there in August and 3 days journey, and it was difficult enough. So I can't even imagine how it was for you. So congratulations on that. Um, I actually well, you answered a lot of my questions, as I said, but I would like to just go back to maybe some of the points. Um, so, uh, you've spoken about the global network of pyramids and sacred mountains in your work. And in your opinion, I suppose Mount Kailash in this area is a big part of this network. How is it all connected with other sacred places in the world? I know that Kailash has a very interesting geographical location. It has the same distance from both north and south poles, about 6,666 kilometers each. And roughly it is the same distance, 6,666 kilometers from both Great Pyramid of Giza and Stonehenge. So I'm sure there must be some connection, and I would like to hear your thoughts about that.
The ancients were smart, especially pyramid and megalithic sites builders. What they were looking were the energy potent places on this planet. And they also knew that geometrical shapes are extremely important. Certain numbers, like number pi, 3.14, and number phi, 1.618, has a great importance. So they developed elements of sacred geometry. If you have elements of sacred geometry, then you have the movement of the energy. For example, if you place the pyramid, four-sided pyramid, and you orient it towards the cardinal points, north-south, east-west, which is the case of Mount Kailash, Chinese pyramids, pyramids in Cambodia, Indonesia, Gunung Padang, Western Java, pyramids in Egypt, all of them, 155, pyramids in Peru, 300 of them, pyramid in Bolivia, Acapena, for example, some of the Mayan pyramids, Cahokia pyramids in the US, of course, the Bosnian pyramids. Then you realize that the pyramid amplifies the natural sources of the energy. In a case, for example, of the Bosnian pyramid, our biggest key structure, the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, is placed above iron plate. Iron amplifies, iron actually brings the energy, creates electromagnetic field, and pyramid amplifies this electromagnetism. How do we know? Because we have measured the base and at the top. The second source of energy, in our case, in Bosnia, underground water flow. Water moves, it releases negative ions, which are very beneficial to our body and the surrounding areas. The pyramid amplifies the concentration of negative ions. Number three, another water flow below the first one. Between the two, there is a charge, voltage, and electrical field, which pyramid pulls up, amplifying it. And that particular electrical field going through the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. The same case of Kailash energy beam, same case of the Kukulkan pyramid in Chichen Itza, Mexico, same case of the Moon Pyramid in city of Teotihuacan in Mexico, and so on. And then, in the case of Bosnian pyramids, during archaeological excavation, we discovered a lot of quartz crystal. In the tunnels under the pyramids, quartz crystal. It has ability, number one, to amplify the energy, and number two, to transform the energy from one form, electromagnetism, which we measure, to another one, ultrasound, which we also measure. So we measure in Bosnian tunnels and on the pyramids 28 kilohertz ultrasound, which is the levitation frequency. And it can tell us something about potential transportation techniques that they used. This is the case of Bosnian pyramids. The case of Kailash, base is granite, very powerful and energetically potential material with a lot of quartz crystal, and limestone, again, quartz crystal. So it seems that the ancients, not people, not humans, who were dealing with those mountains in Western Tibet, knew something about the energy, about the shape, about the quartz crystals, and most probably using some unimaginable powers, they were able to shape the whole mountains. And if you remember my mantra, when I started my course, I said, message from the oldest built pyramid, Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, mother of all of them, to shaped Pyramid Mountain, father of all of them, Kailash. The more I traveled the world, the more I realized that certain mountains must have been shaped by some powers which are so much bigger and more powerful than us, and deep in the time before time. So I would say it has always been about the energy. And is it possible that certain network of pyramids have been formed on different continents? It is very powerful, and it is very possible. So, if such network existed back in the time, what would they do with that? Imagine us today in 21st century. We have many power plants, hydropower plants, thermal, nuclear, and so on. They produce electrical energy, but then they accumulate it. And what they do with it, they distribute it to residential, industrial, commercial areas. Is it possible the similar process happened in the past? They were accumulating so much energy and maybe distributing it, but in a different way. Maybe in order to protect the planet or to affect the spirituality and all living life. It is possible. Who are we to describe more advanced civilizations, their knowledge, and what they were planning and executing? We cannot. We can guess. This is what I just did. I was guessing.
But it's a really good guess, I would say. It explains a lot. Because I was thinking it cannot be coincidence, all these inexplicable things around Kailash that define the laws of nature and science. And also it's not humanly possible to artificially make something like that, like whole mountains and so it must be something much bigger than human civilization involved in and present in those areas. And I know because I also been there, I felt the energy, and I think you are guessing really really close. um, so wow. A lot of information, a lot of interesting things that you said. Just thinking, what else can I ask you that you haven't covered? Um, so I know that scientific research is very restricted in around Kailash. So you made a lot of observations and you mentioned some of that. But I remember reading in your blogs something about Mandar megalithes, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Can you tell me something more about that? You didn't mention that in this.
Yes, while I was preparing myself during that week, we were driving around, visiting some of the monasteries, and one day I was driving in Jeep with a couple of guys who were really working on protection of the area. The local guys, I asked them if there are any megaliths. I managed somehow to explain the big stones. And I mentioned they are vertical, standing up. They said, yes, there is a place. So we were driving off the road and we came to the place which they consider like a graveyard. Came there, of course, it was not a graveyard, and we find some of the really big stones. They were not very wide, maybe about 50 centimeters, some of them 70 centimeters, rather narrow. but big in the sense that they were weighing between 700 and 900 kilos, so almost 1 ton. So somebody had to move them and place them there. And I was doing my focus meditation there, asking who moved those stones, how did they move them, and why did they do it? And I got the message that there are the people a couple of thousand years back. The reason why they were giving the regards to the sun. And no, they were not placed there with the graveyard, so nobody was buried underneath. Even though I got another voice saying that under one of similar stones, which is a bit further away, there was one of the leaders of the community who specifically asked to be buried under one of those megaliths, but it happened much, much later from the time when they were erected and placed there. Nobody did any archaeological excavation there. We don't have any answers. It would be tough to find any answers because it's a rocky place, and one would need to remove the megalith and try to find some organic material below in order to get a date when they were really moved and placed there. But it's such a remote area, and I don't see any interest of the authorities to do that. So even there, we can see some of the intriguing, megalithic projects from distant past, but it is something that could be done by humans.
Thank you for the answer. And well, as we wrap up, I'd love to know, after visiting Mount Kailash, how has this experience shaped your research and your views on pyramid structures and ancient civilizations?
Kailash was an extraordinary experience for me, different levels. I described many of them. But on the other hand, it leaves me in awe because even though I've been researching pyramids and megalithic sites on all 6 continents, more than 60 countries, for the last 4 decades, I realized that I know almost nothing about those sites. I do not know who were the real builders, when it was happening, how did they do it, and what was the true purpose of such huge endeavors. And Kailash is one such experience that tells me that very powerful civilizations lived in the past. Our planet has much more complex and longer history than what they teach us in our education system. And our civilization has such huge ego. And with that ego, we simply close our mind and we are not capable of learning stuff about our past. Therefore, we really don't know where we are heading in our future. Like I said, Kailash is a perfect example how little we know and how much we can learn from the past.
Thank you. It really sums it up really well. Is there anything else that you would like to share and that I didn't ask you?
Well, since you are part of the Mohanji Foundation, I want to say that my sincere friendship with Mohanji is very important for me personally, for the organization that I'm heading, Archaeological Park Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation, and the project that we have. Every year, we are happy to host the visit of Mohanji and everyone involved in his movement. I think lately he's been doing very important thing globally. I think it is time to say no the wars, to unfair distribution of the planetary resources. We should not wait always to the governments to solve our problems, because the governments very often caused those problems in the last few thousand years. So individuals like him and his organization are very important in shaping different future for future generations.
Thank you. I've been to Bosnian Pyramids many times with Mohanji and without Mohanji, and I know that he loves that place, and the work you do there is amazing. The energy is also so beautiful, so strong, and we're so lucky to have something like that in Balkans, and all your hard work that is making that available for us. So I know that the group will come this year again. So every year they're coming, and I would recommend it to everybody. So thank you for hosting us, and for every time we come, you come and visit and give a private tour to us. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for this talk. I am really, I learned a lot of new things. I hope our viewers as well. And it's been really interesting to hear your perspective on Mount Kailash and how these ancient sites continue to hold a mystery that challenges our understanding of history and science. And we're really looking forward to following your ongoing research and discoveries. So thank you once again, Dr. Osmanagić, for joining us. And thank you to everyone watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Kailash with Mohanji Chronicles, and that you will stay tuned for more episodes. Until then, Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you, Dr. Osmanagić, for this great talk.